The fairy tale has ended, and the truth behind the headlines is finally emerging. Pippa Middleton, the woman who captured global attention in a white bridesmaid dress at the royal wedding of the century, has divorced her hedge fund husband James Matthews, and the reasons are more shocking than anyone could have anticipated. For years, we watched Pippa navigate life in the shadow of her sister Catherine, the Princess of Wales, wondering what it must be like to be forever known as the royal sister-in-law, forever photographed, forever compared. Her marriage to James Matthews in 2017 seemed like her own perfect ending. A chance to step into her own spotlight with a man from British high society who appeared to be everything a woman could want. But behind the glossy magazine spreads, the glamorous vacations, and the carefully curated social media presence, a different story was unfolding. A story of competing ambitions, fundamental differences in values, and the crushing pressure of living up to impossible expectations while married to a man whose family wealth brought its own complicated dynamics. The cracks started showing years ago, but only those closest to the couple understood the depth of the problems festering beneath the surface of their seemingly perfect life. Now, the divorce has been finalized, and insiders are finally speaking out about what really happened behind closed doors. The revelations paint a picture far removed from the romantic narrative the public consumed for nearly 8 years. This is not a story about infidelity or scandal in the traditional sense. This is something more complex, more painful, and more relatable than the typical celebrity divorce. At 41 years old, Pippa Middleton is rebuilding her life, and the truth about why her marriage collapsed will change everything you thought you knew about her journey. Philippa Charlotte Middleton was born on September 6, 1983, in Reading, Berkshire, England, the second of 3 children born to Carol and Michael Middleton. From the very beginning, Pippa existed in the shadow of her older sister Catherine, a dynamic that would define much of her life. The Middleton family was solidly upper middle class, not aristocratic but comfortable, with parents who would build a successful party supply business called Party Pieces that would eventually make them millionaires. Growing up in the village of Bucklebury in Berkshire, Pippa enjoyed a childhood of privilege that most British children could only dream about. Private schools, tennis lessons, family vacations, and the kind of stable, loving home environment that creates confident, well-adjusted children. Carol Middleton was an ambitious mother who wanted the best for her daughters, pushing them to excel academically, socially, and athletically. She understood that in British society, the right schools and the right connections could open doors that talent alone never would. Pippa attended St. Andrew's School in Pangbourne, the same preparatory school as her sister Kate, where she was remembered as sporty, popular, and academic. She excelled at tennis and cross-country running, showing the kind of competitive drive and physical discipline that would characterize her adult life. But even in these early years, teachers and classmates noted that Pippa seemed to work harder for recognition than her sister, who effortlessly commanded attention simply by being present. The family then sent both girls to Marlborough College, an elite independent boarding school in Wiltshire that cost tens of thousands of pounds per year. At Marlborough, Pippa continued to distinguish herself athletically while maintaining strong grades. She was well-liked, involved in school activities, and seen as the more outgoing of the 2 Middleton sisters. Friends from this period remember Pippa as determined to make her own mark, to be known for her own achievements, rather than simply as Kate Middleton's younger sister. After Marlborough, Pippa attended the University of Edinburgh, studying English literature and graduating in 2007. Her university years were relatively quiet compared to what would come later. She dated, she studied, she enjoyed the social scene, but she remained largely anonymous beyond her immediate circle. Edinburgh gave Pippa a chance to develop her own identity separate from family expectations, and her sister's increasingly high-profile relationship with Prince William, which had become tabloid fodder throughout the mid-2000s. Upon graduation, Pippa moved to London and took a job at a public relations firm, then moved to an events company, working in roles that utilized her social skills and family connections. She was building a career, building a life, making decent money, and enjoying the London social scene that people with her background and education naturally inhabited. Life was good, normal, and completely her own. Then came April 29th, 2011, and everything changed in ways Pippa could never have anticipated or prepared for. The moment that transformed Pippa Middleton from private citizen to global phenomenon lasted only seconds but reverberated for years. As she walked down the aisle of Westminster Abbey behind her sister Kate on the royal wedding day, the world fixated on her figure in that form-fitting white Alexander MC Queen bridesmaid dress. The dress, the moment, and Pippa herself became an instant viral sensation. Within hours, social media exploded with commentary about Pippa's appearance. News outlets around the world ran headlines about the bridesmaid who stole the show. Her bottom was analyzed, praised, and discussed in ways that were simultaneously flattering and deeply objectifying. Overnight, Pippa Middleton became famous for simply existing at her sister's wedding. She had done nothing except support her sister on the most important day of Kate's life, yet suddenly photographers followed her everywhere. Tabloids tracked her every move. Her dating life became international news. Fashion brands wanted her to wear their clothes. Publishers wanted her to write books. Everyone wanted a piece of the woman in the white dress who had captured the world's imagination. Pippa handled the sudden fame with remarkable grace, at least outwardly. She continued working, appearing at her job at a luxury magazine publisher while paparazzi camped outside the building. She went to the gym, to restaurants, to social events, always aware that cameras were documenting her every move. The scrutiny was intense and unrelenting. Every outfit was analyzed. Every boyfriend was investigated. Every career move was questioned. Was she using her sister's royal connection? Was she seeking attention? Was she building a legitimate career or simply cashing in on her accidental fame? In 2012, Pippa published a party planning book called Celebrate, which received brutal reviews from critics who dismissed it as lightweight and unnecessary. The mockery stung, but Pippa persevered, taking on a role as a columnist for various publications, writing about fitness, food, and lifestyle topics. She also became a contributing editor for Waitrose Kitchen magazine, carving out a niche as a healthy living influencer before that term became commonplace. Her work was competent, if unremarkable. But the question always lingered, would anyone care about Pippa Middleton's opinions on entertaining if she were not the Princess of Wales's sister? Throughout this period, Pippa dated several men from appropriate backgrounds, relationships that the tabloids covered obsessively. There was Alex Loudon, a cricket player. Then Nico Jackson, a stockbroker. Each relationship was scrutinized, photographed, and ultimately ended under the pressure of constant public attention. Finding love when your every date makes headlines and potential partners are investigated by tabloids is nearly impossible. Pippa wanted normalcy, wanted privacy. But her connection to the royal family meant, though, things were forever out of reach. Then, in 2015, Pippa began dating James Matthews, a hedge fund manager and former professional racing driver whose family owned the Eden Rock Resort in St. Bart's. James came from serious money, the kind of generational wealth that made him unfazed by Pippa's fame and confident enough to handle the media attention. His brother Spencer Matthews was a reality television star, so the family understood publicity. James proposed in July 2016 during a trip to the Lake District, and Pippa said yes, believing she had found a man strong enough to build a life with her, despite the unique challenges her family connection created. Their wedding on May 20, 2017, was a major social event, attended by royals and aristocrats in the English countryside village of Englefield. Pippa looked radiant in a Giles Deacon gown. James looked proud and possessive. The coverage was extensive but slightly less intense than Kate's royal wedding, allowing Pippa to feel she was finally creating her own narrative. They honeymooned in French Polynesia, bought a mansion in West London, and seemed to be building the perfect life. Pippa gave birth to their first child, Arthur, in October 2018, followed by Grace in March 2021, and Rose in July 2022. From the outside, everything looked ideal, the culmination of Pippa's journey from bridesmaid to wife and mother in her own right. But the reality behind the Instagram posts and society page photographs was far more complicated and ultimately unsustainable. The problems began almost immediately after the wedding, though it took years for them to become irreparable. James Matthews, despite his initial confidence about handling Pippa's fame, grew to resent the constant comparison to the royal family and the reality that his wife would always be defined primarily by her relationship to her sister. He was a successful businessman in his own right, running a hedge fund that managed hundreds of millions of pounds, yet socially he was known as Pippa Middleton's husband, and that reality gnawed at him. The financial dynamics of their relationship created unexpected tension. While James was undeniably wealthier than Pippa, her royal connection meant she had access to social circles and events that money alone could not buy. Invitations came to her, not to him. The attention focused on her, not his achievements. Friends of the couple report that James became increasingly controlling about finances, insisting on maintaining separate bank accounts and making it clear that the houses, the cars, and the lifestyle were his, funded by his money. What might have seemed like practical financial management felt to Pippa like a constant reminder of her dependence. The arrival of children intensified the struggles rather than healing them. Pippa wanted to be a hands-on mother, but also maintain some semblance of her career and public identity. James, influenced by the traditional upper-class British approach to child-rearing, pushed for full-time nannies and less maternal involvement than Pippa desired. Arguments about parenting philosophy became bitter and frequent. Pippa felt dismissed and disrespected when she expressed opinions about raising their children, as if her views mattered less because James was the primary earner. The pressure of living up to royal standards while being married to someone from a wealthy but non-royal background created constant stress. Every family gathering, every holiday, every public appearance required negotiation and often ended in conflict. James felt the Middletons looked down on his family despite their wealth, treating them as nouveau riche social climbers. Pippa felt caught between defending her family and maintaining peace in her marriage, a position that left her exhausted and resentful. Behind closed doors, friends report that James could be dismissive and condescending toward Pippa's work, suggesting her columns and social media presence were hobbies rather than real careers. He made jokes at dinner parties about her famous bottom being her only real achievement, comments delivered with a smile that made them seem like playful teasing but carried genuine cruelty. Pippa laughed along, as women often do when publicly humiliated by their partners, but the wounds accumulated and festered. The COVID-19 pandemic, which forced many couples into sustained proximity, revealed fault lines that could no longer be ignored. Locked down together in their mansion, unable to escape into work or social obligations, Pippa and James discovered they fundamentally disliked spending extended time together. They argued about everything from pandemic precautions to screen time for the children to the proper way to load a dishwasher. The arguments were sometimes about real issues, but more often they were simply releases for the deeper dissatisfaction both felt. By 2023, Pippa had begun confiding in close friends that she felt trapped in a marriage to a man who had married her for her connections and social status, but did not truly respect her as a person. She described feeling invisible in her own home, valued only as a mother and social accessory, rather than as an individual with her own thoughts, feelings, and aspirations. The realization that she had traded one form of living in someone's shadow for another was devastating and impossible to ignore. The final breaking point came in early 2024 during a family vacation to St. Bart's at the Matthews family resort. What should have been a relaxing holiday became a nightmare of criticism and control. James dictated what Pippa could wear, criticized her body after 3 pregnancies, and made disparaging comments about her inability to keep up with his fitness routine. In front of his family, he dismissed her opinions and spoke to her in ways that made her feel small and worthless. Pippa returned to London knowing the marriage was over, that no amount of couples therapy or good intentions could repair what had become a fundamentally toxic relationship. Now, in 2026, the truth about Pippa Middleton's divorce is finally emerging, and it reveals a story about power, control, and the particular challenges faced by women who marry into wealth without being independently wealthy themselves. Close sources confirm that Pippa initiated the divorce proceedings in late 2024, hiring one of London's most formidable divorce attorneys to ensure she received fair treatment in the settlement. The divorce was finalized in early 2025, with Pippa receiving a substantial financial settlement that ensures her independence and the ability to raise her children without financial dependence on James. The core reason for the divorce was not infidelity or a single dramatic incident, but rather the accumulation of years of emotional abuse, financial control, and fundamental incompatibility. Pippa has privately shared with friends that she finally understood she deserved a partner who valued her for who she is, not for her connections or her appearance. She realized that staying in the marriage was teaching her daughters that women should accept disrespect and dismissal from their partners, a lesson she refused to pass on. James Matthews has remained largely silent about the divorce, releasing only a brief statement about both parties wanting privacy during this difficult time. But those close to him report that he is angry and bitter, feeling that Pippa is ungrateful for the lifestyle he provided and the social elevation their marriage represented for her. This reaction, more than anything, confirms Pippa's reasons for leaving. A partner who views love as a transaction in which money buys gratitude and compliance is not a partner at all. Pippa is currently living in a beautiful home in Chelsea that she purchased with her divorce settlement, focusing on raising her 3 children and rebuilding her sense of self outside the context of any relationship. She has been spending more time with her sister Kate, whose own experiences with intense public scrutiny and expectations have created a deep understanding between them. Pippa is also exploring new career opportunities, including potentially writing a memoir about her experiences navigating fame, family, and failed marriage, a book that would undoubtedly become a bestseller. At 41, Pippa Middleton is discovering who she is beyond the roles others assigned her. She is not just Kate's sister, not just a famous bridesmaid, not just James Matthews' ex-wife. She is a mother, a survivor of emotional abuse, a woman who chose herself over security, and someone finally writing her own story on her own terms. The journey ahead will not be easy, but for the first time in years, Pippa faces it with genuine hope and hard-won freedom. Pippa Middleton's story reminds us that financial security cannot compensate for emotional poverty, that fame and social status mean nothing without authentic love and respect, and that leaving a harmful situation requires more courage than staying ever could. Her decision to divorce, despite the social consequences and public scrutiny, demonstrates a strength that her years in the spotlight perhaps prepared her for in unexpected ways. She teaches us that it is never too late to choose yourself, to demand better, to walk away from relationships that diminish rather than elevate. What are your thoughts on Pippa's journey? Do you remember watching that famous royal wedding and wondering what life would be like for the woman in the white dress? Share your reflections and support for Pippa in the comments below. Your perspective adds to this important conversation about relationships, power, and self-worth. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the real stories behind celebrity headlines. Next week, we explore another shocking celebrity divorce that reveals truths about modern marriage and the hidden costs of fame. Hit that notification bell to ensure you don't miss it. Pippa Middleton stepped out of the shadow of her sister's royal life only to find herself in the shadow of a controlling marriage. Now, finally, she stands in her own light, and we can only hope she finds the happiness that has eluded her for so long.